Hi, Simon.
Hey, Lisa. How's it
How are you?
going? What? How are you?
I laugh because I feel like we step on each other always at the beginning. I'm a little tired. I have to admit this. I think I am fighting a cold. Rob and I went to Southern California last weekend. We had Friday off, and so Thursday night we went and had dinner with my Pilates teacher who lives down there with her husband.
Okay.
And then the next day we went to the Getty Museum. We went to a museum called the Museum of Jurassic Technology, which was fascinating. So I can't
Okay.
even get into it. Just look it up. It was fascinating. And then we drove down to Burbank. We drove down to Anaheim, went to an Angels game. The next day we went to Disney all day, went home in the middle of the day, took a 2.5 hour nap, and then came home on
Nice.
Sunday. And Saturday night, while we're in the sea of people, Rob looks at me and says, "We totally have COVID now, right?" Because there's just so many people. And I didn't test myself, but I'm like, I just feel low. So I'm like, I think I'm kind of fighting a cold, but I'll do my best to stay, perky and whatnot. Did you do anything this weekend? It was
Um,
ages ago.
yeah, it seems like it was years and years ago. I'm sure we
Mm-hmm.
did something. In fact, I have no idea what I did, but
All
but
right.
I mean, the other thing that you're probably fighting, right, is seasonal allergy on top
I do
of,
have that.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's true.
maybe catching a cold. Yeah. I mean, pretty much amusement parks have their own definitions of diseases. I went to Epcot in December, no less, and got amusement park rash, which you
Oh
get
yeah,
around
you
your
told me about
ankles.
that.
And
Crazy.
I walked over to the medic. Disney is great. Even
Mm-hmm.
in Florida, they have like EMTs and people like a doctor you
Uh-huh.
can go
Yeah.
visit in the park.
Yep.
And they all looked at my legs and started laughing. And they're sort of like, yeah, we see
Everybody
this
gets
all the
it.
time.
Oh, that's so funny.
So it's like, here's some hydrocortisone cream, here's some, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all
Yep.
wear socks. I'm all with shorts. They're all, yeah, it's cool. And you're a dad. So I'm like, all right.
Ah, that is so
Well,
funny.
I'm glad you had a good trip. I'm going to have to ask you more about the Jurassic thing because that sounds kind of interesting.
It was crazy. I mean, just to give a little highlight, I don't know why it's called that, frankly. It's a collection of very odd things. And it's
Okay.
like, it's just like, wait. So one of the like sections of it was this artist, I guess, who does these miniatures, and you have to literally look through a microscope to see it. And it's probably a 16th of an inch
Like a
or
grain of
smaller.
rice or
It's
smaller.
smaller. Like if you look at it directly, you can't even see it. And you look at it in a microscope and it's like this elaborate design with like a chicken and all these like, it's like, how? So it's very unusual,
Okay.
other weird things. And then other, like, I wish I could think of
How long would you
examples.
spend there?
We were there a good hour and a half or so, and
Okay.
we could have stayed longer, but we were getting nervous about driving down to Anaheim because it was
Right.
getting close to
Traffic.
traffic. Exactly. It took us 2 hours to get
How
there
is the new Getty? I haven't been to the new.
overwhelming, to be honest.
Okay.
So we were there also 2 hours, and we barely scratched the surface. It felt a little bit of like seeing the same thing over and over again. That's the only thing I'll say. But the grounds are gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
just vast.
You were the
And
one, you went to the one off of the 5, right? Not the
yeah,
one in Malibu.
not in Malibu, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, it's closer to like Burbank, Beverly
Right.
Hills sort of area.
That's
Yeah,
the newer one. Yeah.
yeah,
Did
beautiful.
you see
And
much of the fire stuff?
I was just about to say that. No, somebody else asked me about that, and I
Okay.
totally had forgot. We didn't see any residual anything about the fires.
Okay.
I don't know. It just happened to be where we went, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean,
But
we were down in March and we didn't see any either, and we're surprised.
I was surprised. Yeah, for sure.
We were sort of in the Anaheim Orange area, though, so I think we're a little
Yep.
further east and south. But
Yep.
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It was good. Trying to recover.
So, I mean, as a random segue into today's
Yeah, I know.
topic,
I was thinking, how are we going to segue?
Well, I mean, did you use AI to do any research or anything for your trip?
Probably, but it was a while ago that we started planning it, because we knew last year that we were going to have that Friday off, and we thought, oh, that would be a fun thing to do. But what we're going to talk about today is how, when you're doing research or searching for things on the internet, instead of the traditional natural search results that show up or paid search results that show up, we now have this new thing that shows up that is it's an AI result, or I think there's people are sort of gravitating around generative. Is it engine optimization, GEO,
Yeah, I think
instead
it's
of
GEO instead of SEO.
search engine optimization?
Right.
So that's what today's topic is. We're going to kind of talk about how, like, Google and Microsoft with Bing, which uses OpenAI's ChatGPT on the back end, how they're incorporating that into search results.
And that's Copilot too, right? I think.
It's also Copilot. Yeah, Copilot is Microsoft's answer to AI responses, but the back end is ChatGPT for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that, like you're saying, AI is being incorporated now in all kinds of places. And I think what we want to be able to talk about today is, for our audience, is there anything they need to do differently, right? As far as a business owner that has maybe a website or social media or any digital platform that ultimately could be food for an AI bot to read.
Well, let's talk about what's changing, and let's kind of break down the differences between kind of traditional SEO and what people have been doing historically, and then this GEO. I don't know if people say GEO because we don't go CO.
Yeah, but I think if you say GEO, everyone's going to be geography, like the world. Yeah, exactly.
GEO. Sure. Right. We're putting a stake in the ground. It's GEO.
It's GEO.
It's GEO. So
and it's GIF, but that's another topic.
It is definitely GIF.
Okay, good. I'm glad
it's not a GIF.
Yeah,
it's not
that's
a
peanut butter.
It's not a graphic interface format. Yeah. It's a graphic interface format. Interface? Okay, that was sidebar.
Sure, sidebar.
Okay, so let's talk about, all right, so SEO. Tell us the definition of SEO.
I mean, SEO is essentially, when you're thinking about search engine optimization, the goal is to have your website rank high on the search results, right? So everyone's familiar with Google. You search a word, you get a list of links. Now Google has all kinds of other stuff, video, images, whatever,
shopping,
incorporated. But the idea is you still want to rank. And in order to do that, you need to optimize against keywords. You need to do things called backlinks, which we'll talk about. And really, content structure is super important for SEO. And in a way, you're almost optimizing for a search engine, not necessarily for a person. But as we've said in the past, you need to be optimizing no matter what ultimately for your customer. So that's SEO.
And then talk about GEO.
So GEO, or generative engine optimization, which
rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, we're going to work on that. I think, it's too many syllables. It's gen engine optimization. That sounds better. Gen engine. Anyway, I think the idea here is really you want to make sure the content is targeted or written better for AI tools, which are looking for conversation, language, easy to read, make sure, like, consistency of business information, things like that. So that,
and direct, like, it's a direct answer to what you're looking for almost. So
yeah, I mean, as far as what you get from it, I was thinking more what you put into it, but right, you get something that's like a conversation. I feel like Jen and chat AI, it's like word of mouth, right? It's almost like the best way to promote your business is through word of mouth, and people are going to describe your business different ways depending on their experience. But the more consistent you are in the way you talk about your business, the more that people will parrot that back, right? And reflect that when they tell friends. Like, you're talking about this museum of the Jurassic inventions or whatever technology.
Yeah.
And if everyone describes it more similarly, that's the word of mouth kind of concept. But I think, again, AI is smart because it's going to start optimizing based on who you are and the questions you've asked in the past as well, and things like that.
That's true.
So,
well, okay, so let's make it practical. So with the SEO, from a business owner perspective, you might write a blog post that's like top 10 tips for lawn care or something like that. And you would make sure that you include certain keywords in there, like lawn care tips or gardening advice, which is what people might be searching on. But with GEO, you would phrase your content with more of a direct answer, which instead of like trying to put these keywords in there, you would have something like, the best way to keep your lawn healthy is to water it regularly, especially during dry spells or something like that. And so the response in search would cite that, and then it would have a link to that particular come back to you. So, I think this is important. Well, I just want to mention that you're gonna see lower traffic to your website. I mean, I've seen that with a bunch of my clients that what is normally organic search or SEO has started to decline. And it can be nerve-wracking, but at the same time, don't panic, because maybe they're getting the answers already right in there. It's just they haven't gone to your website. So you're not tracking them in the same way. And we love to be tracking, but it's something that is like, it's okay. They are, getting your information as long as you set things up correctly. But so again, fewer people might visit your website, and then we got to make sure that, you adapt.
I think that's
what were you going to say?
Well, no, I think that's a great point. And I think if there are ways for you to incorporate your brand in those more sort of simple phrase-based responses, your brand then may become part of what ChatGPT returns. They may say per, Southern California gardening, driveway gardening.com. There's, the reason I say that is I now have a vegetable garden on the side of my driveway in the front. So we'll see if the squirrels or if my neighbors get all the tomatoes, but that's another story. But the idea is that you can incorporate the name of your site or the name of your organization, company, what have you, in your response. So instead of pronouns or things like that, you could, incorporate that wording and things like that. That's just an idea that brand, I think, is going to become more of a thing, maybe.
That's a good point.
A resurgence, a little bit of how important brand and your brand characteristics are, because again, that's AI is going to make associations like that.
Good
so what would you say are some of the, again, for the small business owner, like they're not going to be able to do a whole bunch of maybe technical stuff without getting help or whatever, but what are some of those things that they can do to make sure they maintain their visibility?
Well, one thing that I just learned about, and I didn't realize this was a thing, because I'm trying to help other companies with this problem, if you will, is if you include almost in every page, I think it's pretty often, but if you include an FAQ, that is a direct, somebody's asking a question and you're writing the answer, like literally having an FAQ in there. And if you consistently do this, because I know people that are doing it with their every single blog post. So this company that I work with they found that if they have a table of contents at the top of that page, then the article, and then an FAQ at the bottom, that is helping with showing it, because it's structured. It's literally like an AI can crawl and can kind of pull it out. Yeah, exactly.
It makes sense of it, right?
Makes sense of it, exactly.
But again, I think that's really good just from a human perspective, honestly, right?
Which that's another thing, write it like a human.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're like, oh, let's optimize this for a search engine bot that, you have no relationship with, except that maybe they drive traffic. But I feel like being natural, conversational, like you said earlier. Don't get overly formal or technical in those responses. And yeah, I think that's a really good point. Do you have an example maybe of how you might phrase something differently when you're thinking about a human versus?
I think that in the business world in general, small business, doesn't matter, mid, large, we tend to write more, I don't know, like clinically almost.
And feature
So,
benefit.
yeah,
We're all stuck in the sort of, you're right. It's a formula.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just not, it's almost like it's not friendly. So like, you know, look, I get like, just like, you know, we offer fresh coffee and we make great coffee every morning instead of like, you know, 100% Arabica blend. I don't know. I mean, I don't know coffee that much, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's like, you don't talk like that.
Well, I mean, and maybe elaborating on the coffee shop idea, like coffee shop is just, that's casual, but our establishment,
exactly. That's true. Nobody speaks like that.
Brewed beverages, because you want to have these broad terms that, that sort of
good one.
You know, it's just like, hey, we make great coffee and we do it every morning.
Exactly.
So, and I can see an AI guy going, oh, I need some coffee and I want the best.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, yeah, because I think what's interesting is a little bit of side note or whatever, color commentary. I feel like people are using ChatGPT to do things like, what's the best Chinese restaurant in downtown, you know?
Yeah.
And so obviously it's going to look at Yelp, maybe it might look at web pages. It's probably going to look at the map data to figure out downtown, you know, what's that parameter. But I see you could start getting some actual, like real, like, it's like you're talking to a friend again.
It's true. Now, pause for a moment because you're just bringing up a good point that we got to clarify here. So what we are talking about in general here is SEO. So like, what do people need to do for search engine optimization? So people are going to go to Google or they're going to go to Bing or choose your search engine. And then when you see these AI responses, what you were just describing is people are starting with ChatGPT or starting with Claude. Yeah. That's different. And that is a whole other thing too. I mean, in both cases, people are using AI to get their answers instead of, you know, driving to your website and clicking on links at the top of the search engine results
page. The beauty of both scenarios is the content is very similar.
It's still leveraging the same thing.
Changing the way you think about creating content impacts both the new stuff that you see at the top of your traditional search engine web pages, and it impacts when you're directly in AI tools. So yeah, you're right.
And then I want to elaborate on the content a little bit more because there's a couple things that keep coming up that I've been reading articles about, which is your authority. So are there things in there that show like you are the authority on this particular topic? And customer reviews is a good way of doing that. But also quality is part of that. And I think part of it is even, didn't we read somewhere that if you're referenced on another website, doesn't even have to be a backlink. Like, you don't have, so what a backlink is normally with SEO, if I'm on somebody else's website and they have a link to my website, that's a backlink. It's my backlink. It's a link for them, but it's a backlink for me. And that's showing, it's hinting towards authority. You don't even have to have a link with GEO. You have to just be referenced. I don't know how it knows.
And GEO starts to make associations. I was just going to date myself, though, because back in the day when the web was new and it was the wild, wild west, we would constantly be reaching out to people and saying, we want reciprocal links. They weren't, backlink hadn't been, that wasn't the term. It was, we were just trying to this is even before robust search engines, if you will. It was like, how do we connect. So a co-partner or someone who's in the same space as us, but obviously isn't a competitor, but how do we get links back and forth? And every time we do a deal, and this is when I was at Sony back in the day, and then Palm even, if we had a partnership with a software company, let's say, or someone who was being included on the Palm device, we would say, can you give us a link back to our website? And we'll give you one, right? And I think that's the notion of sort of backlink. And now, the internet is so powerful. And now with AI, you don't necessarily have to have the perfect link, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think the other thing that's changing, even as we're probably talking about this, is for SEO, it was really important to have fresh content. But the chat, even the Google Gemini and things like that, are not indexing at the same pace as what the old school SEO is. So in other words, SEO, depending on how much authority you have and how big of a sort of website ranking you have, you might get indexed every other day or every day. Like if you're a really big company with lots of great content, always changing, the Google engine may come every day and check to see what changed on your site and update their index. But for AI, we were talking earlier, some of the AI stuff used to be, this is from 2020 or 2020.
Exactly.
And we're like, so using AI a few months ago for search wasn't useful because it was out of date. There's a lot of out of date stuff. And now those bots are indexing far more frequently. And I think it will only, speed up, if you will.
Yep.
And I think it's also important that you keep looking at chat, right? And see how it's responding about your company or your industry or your service area, and then optimizing again for that, right?
Well, then, yeah, let's talk about like the tracking component, because as of this recording, it's, I don't think the measurement is great. I mean, you still can look at,
I don't even know how you would do it, actually.
Well, so, I mean, it's probably if somebody does click on something, you can still measure that. And
Correct.
It's probably going to come through as organic search, because on that summary, there are it's like a little chain link icon that if you want to actually go to the website. So you still can do that, but I feel like people don't do that quite as much. So the only other thing I can think of is like, just kind of like put yourself in the shoes of your customers or prospects and think about what are some of the things that people might be searching for. Do that search yourself to see what shows up and make sure things are relevant. And if you're like, oh no, it's, referencing this other thing, then maybe make some adjustments to your website.
Quick caveat, whenever you search on your own computer for your own stuff that you're always looking at, that does it. If Chrome passes that information and Safari passes that information back to the search engine. So if you want a more accurate view of searching, let's say your company name, do it in incognito.
Good point.
So do it in private browsing. It's not 100% foolproof because they look at all kinds of things like where you're coming from, your IP address and things like that. But true. It will give you a better view. I think this is an interesting thing, and I ask anybody who listens to the podcast if they know more about the actual tracking of AI generated visits. We'd love to hear more from you and talk about that, because I think this is an area where there's an opportunity maybe for enhancing existing analytics tools, but also maybe looking at something new that analyzes what's in AI, which sounds crazy because it's sort of AI on top of AI. But how marketers are going to want to figure that out, or somebody's going to want to know that, right? There's data somewhere. So
it's true. And sidebar. If we've got the SEO and we have SEM, search engine marketing, which is paid search, as a counterpart, the idea of paid
AI?
Yeah, GEO. The counterpart to
Gem?
that, Gem. No, Gem. It would be Gem. The counterpart is not quite there yet. I know that I've heard that Google is experimenting with this, as they should. You know,
Yeah.
advertising is their bread and butter. And I do know that the company Perplexity, which is another, you know, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, they've started experimenting with ad units, but those are the people that are, first of all, if you're using Perplexity, that means you're probably pretty savvy technically, because it's a very, you know, edge case. Like, you have to know about it. It doesn't have the brand recognition that ChatGPT or Gemini has.
Right.
So that, and then secondarily, I don't know what the results look like, but who is on it, it's a very specific audience. So if you are a tech company, perhaps that's a good place to advertise, but I don't think it's not there yet. But, you know, I would imagine in the coming months, we'll see something from Google.
And I'm sure I'm not the first person to think about this, but I can imagine ChatGPT selling information back to companies and marketers saying,
100%.
This is how many times your content was used, if you will, in the results in part of whatever, you know, the AI conversation. And or, you know, and these are the queries, right? These are the prompts that are being used. It's just like in the SEO world, where we want to know what the keywords are and maybe what the phrases searched on were. And now we're looking for more. I don't know.
Here's what I actually think. So rather than that, I think that it would say, me as an advertiser, I would have to say, I would like to target people who have these queries. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, but I think it's more be able, that.
Just like Search Console or some of these other search tools like Conductor and things, you have to be able to put in phrases.
What is the search volume?
Exactly.
Google Trends, trends.google.com is another thing we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Free tool.
Is there going to be AI-based trends now that, you know, I'm sure it's being worked on. Anybody who's remotely close to analytics is probably thinking about it.
100%. They're thinking about monetization, not just this, you know, charging $20 a month for a person to use ChatGPT, but, you know, how can we exploit?
Sort of as we close on this particular topic, the one thing that we didn't mention, ask your customers how they found you. Remember the old days? Was this a newspaper ad? Was it the phone book? Was it direct mailer? Yeah, exactly. And then this thing called email, which was weird, this weird @ sign that, you know, that's one of my favorite videos, is watching Katie Couric and Brian Gumbel talk about the internet and the emails that they had now at Good Morning America, I think it was. But anyway, the idea is that you can just ask customers, I would, you know, maybe they use ChatGPT. Sometimes they probably don't remember what they use because we all use like 1,000 things, right?
That's a good point. But I don't know.
I mean, it's possible that if I used an AI tool, and somebody asked me, I might say, I was looking for the best Chinese restaurants in downtown, and you were included in that. That's why we came here, or whatever. So
it is
funny. I'll let you know how that goes, because that's what we're doing tonight.
That's awesome. I do wonder if people do remember. I feel like I don't remember anything. Like
well, just like you asked me, what did I do last weekend? That was I don't know. 5 days ago.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast. It's
here. Let me check my Google Calendar, which is being incorporated into AI as we speak, and it's gonna know that these things happen every Saturday or every whatever. So,
all right, I just want to recap quickly, because we've talked about a lot of things, and I think the kind of easy things to do is maybe you take a look at some of the content on your website. Do you have opportunities to structure it in a way that, like, literally structured content? So as I said, I know people have to put in like a table of contents almost, but if you think of like a educational institutional paper that has like an outline of 1 period and then a period and then lowercase I, like that literally is a structure. And I'm not saying that you do that necessarily, because then it turns it away from being more human, but like having that, or if at least you have the hierarchy of H1 tag, H2, this is HTML speak, but it helps the bots understand this is a hierarchy. Oh, wait. And then also having an FAQ. That seems to be something that I hear over and over again, that is a recommendation that you're going to start to show up. And then remember that authority concept. So it's like, if you can, and maybe you do like the old days, you call up somebody and say, hey, can you mention us? Right. To have more of a reference. Anything else you want to share?
Just anything you do for SEO today is going to improve your generative results as well. And then I think for me, the big difference is, again, it's that style. It's like looking at your content and making it you and more approachable, right? Less sterile, less corporate, if you will. And using more terms like that, again, I think there's going to be this AI is some people sometimes talk to AI like it's a person. They say, please, thank you. I know I've done it before.
I say you.
Yeah.
Can you do
can
this?
You help me?
Yeah, I do.
And
so funny.
And so that notion of a right or wrong, a strange relationship with technology, almost human, but not quite relationship, means the content sort of needs to reflect that as well. And again, writing for your customers is obviously the absolute best thing you can do. And secondarily, thinking about the technology that needs to read and consume your content, which is what you were saying, give it some order, right? But I feel like AI is going to be, at some point, it's going to not care. Like it's because it's going to be like, oh, I understood they put this lower on the page, therefore it's less value. They put this higher, like something you mentioned on your homepage probably really is going to be more important to AI than something you vary. Yeah. But again, the partnership relationship, stuff like that is really, really important. So
well said.
Yeah. Interesting topic. And again, I think if you have thoughts, feedback, ideas, things that you've tried or have worked or not worked, we'd love to hear from you.
And before we close out, we have to remind people that if you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and tell others about us. So, absolutely. From tangents to tactics,
it's mostly marketing.